All right, Heather. A through Z.
Got to go with P.
Okay. In letter P news, by the time this comes out, the premiere of Agatha All Along will have been. It's been a while since we've had some MCU television.
Right? I was just thinking that.
So that's a thing. We also have Pixar related news. Apparently at Pixar, they are blaming Lightyear being a financial bust on the fact that there was a lesbian kiss in the movie. They believe, Pixar and Disney believe, that that's the reason why that movie was bad, and nobody went and saw it was because of that. Couldn't be that it was a movie no one asked for and was also bad.
Really? They're doing that?
Yeah. Apparently they were so worried about how much that affected that movie that in Inside Out 2, they went out of their way to make sure that the relationship with Riley and that like redheaded girl, like the cool girl, the cool older girl, that they went out of their way to make sure that you couldn't even imply that there could be anything gay between them. Like, they even went back and like changed some of the lighting in the scenes to make sure that it was just obvious that they're friends in this animated movie, because they were just so worried. That,
I mean, I think people still made that inference. Like, I heard a few people asking about it, like, oh, were they supposed to be like, was she crushing on her? So I don't think it worked like they wanted.
Yeah, it's just an incredibly weird thing.
That's so like, what is it? Specific and petty? I don't know. It's very weird.
I do remember when that Lightyear movie came out. I do remember people complaining about that. But I just thought maybe it was more of a vocal minority. You know, I wasn't sure if that was a big sentiment, but I did hear that a lot. There were people that were complaining about it. And I do think even on my Facebook, I remember a parent posting, hey, you know, watch out for this movie because it has this in it and stuff like that. So I do remember there being some reactions to it. But, you know, you look at that stuff and go, oh, it's just some, like I said, I just immediately thought, oh, that's a vocal minority, but that doesn't reflect most people. But damn, now hearing that, it's like, I wonder how much feedback they got about that being an issue, or I don't know. And then it's like, what do you do with that situation? If that's the feedback you're getting, do you take a stand and say, so we're going to continue to put in what we want to put in? Or I just wonder what they were implying by that report. Does that mean that they are not going to have any more LGBTQ representation in their movies? Is that what I'm getting? Is that what the report was implying? Or are they saying shame on the audience for not going to see it for that reason? I'm kind of confused by I think it all depends on what they do as a result of that.
Yeah, and I'm also just kind of like confused why at this point that matters. That movie's a couple years old at this point, right? Like,
yeah, like
it just is weird to me that now, 2 years later, they're saying that was the reason for it being a flop. And again, like, I remember, I don't think any of us specifically disliked it as much as we were very indifferent to it, if I remember right. It was just like a very generic, like, it's fine and it's a movie, but kind of like what Sterling said, like, we don't need this movie. Like, it's not something anybody really asked for. It was just a thing that happened.
And also, who said this? Like, it's not very often that you hear a company representative come out and say, this one element of the film is the reason why it didn't make any money. That just seems strange to me, too. Like, who said this?
Yeah. And also, like, I mean, Pixar is a very obviously popular company. So it's kind of like, are they trying to lose people? But maybe that's the thing. Maybe they feel like they're going to lose more people if they keep the representation than they would if they just took it out. I don't know. But I'm like, they're so heavily affiliated with Disney. And I know Disney's done shows where there's LGBTQ plus characters. So it's like, I mean, why is it and it's animated too. So it's almost like, I don't know. I don't understand it. It's very strange to me that that's a card they're pulling at all, especially right now. I don't know.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem very intelligent. It feels like you're just going to alienate part of your audience. And I always thought, Disney and Pixar, if anything, you want more of the audience. So who thought it would be a good PR move to say this? This just feels like a really stupid maneuver. Like, why would you want to alienate any of your audience? You just, like you said, it was a few years ago. You just say, we're not sure why. I guess people just didn't like it and move on. Like, why would you do this?
Yeah. And that came out in 2022? I don't even remember what year that came out. 2022. Let's see. Lightyear. 2022. Yeah. So we're talking like 2 years ago. And they're saying the reason now is that. So I don't. And again, like you said, it's more of what are they doing with this information? If they're blaming that for being the reason, like what does that mean for them going forward? And then I feel like it will backfire if they're just kind of like, oh, well, then we just need to not have that representation at all. Because again, like we're in 2024, and if they, like, you know what I mean? Like it's going to backfire, and they're actually probably going to lose more people by, I don't know, just doing that,
Yeah. It just doesn't feel like the smartest move unless you come out and say, well, that's unfortunate that we heard so much, that we got so much backlash and so much hate towards that. But, we respect every, type of person, and we like representation in our movies. And, it just depends on what you do with that. If you come out and say that's the reason why people didn't see it, I think what you say afterwards is really going to be pivotal to how people react to that. But I'm guessing if in Inside Out 2, they were like, we don't want any hint of lesbianism. So I guess I'm supposed to believe they were like, okay, we heard your audience. We're just not going to have any representation. I mean, all of this feels dumb to me. Like, I don't know why you would have a representative get up here and say this. I don't know. It's just, especially in today's climate, in today's times, why would you do this? This just doesn't feel like a smart decision at all.
I mean, especially because like it was such a like short thing, like it was so, it lasted
Yeah.
for like a half a second. The kiss was half a second and that was it. Like, why is this? That is, I'm sorry, but that's just, that cannot be the reason that that movie didn't do well. That just
Yeah.
can't be it. Like,
I don't even buy it. Yeah, like how do you? I can't even buy that. Like that's not even anything that any person of any reasonable intelligence. That just doesn't feel like something somebody at a multi-billion billion dollar company would get up and say and be like, yes, this is what the data shows. I don't know. That's so weird.
yeah. And like, I mean, maybe a dumb question. Is Frozen associated with Pixar? They're not.
Yeah.
They're probably, no, I guess they're
Or
not.
Disney
but
animated,
they're just Disney.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm just kind of like, I mean, Disney seems to be fine with it because I remember there was a lot of talk around Elsa's character and the potential of, her being in the LGBTQ plus community. And again, like they have shows, they have characters on shows currently, or at least in the past, that have been in that community. So it's like they're comfortable with it. Like, why is Pixar being weird about this? If that's what I mean, I imagine that they're being weird about it if they're saying, oh, we're blaming this, as opposed to people said this is what it is, but we don't care, we're going to keep doing it. That would be a different story and a different statement. And it doesn't feel like that's what they were saying. It just felt like they were just saying, oh, our movie flopped because of this thing. Like, almost like they were also going to like just remove it altogether. That's what that vibe feels like. But again, I'm not sure.
Yeah, to me, just a very mind-boggling, petty, just mind-boggling decision. Like, I just don't understand why you would want to alienate any part of your audience.
Yeah. Because I mean, the people that weren't, because I remember them saying like, oh, hey, this is going to be like, we're going to have the first ever, LGBT plus people in Pixar for the first time. I think they had given the forewarning of it, right? Or people ahead of time that screened it said something about it. But I just remember being like, that's cool. Like, great. Let's get with the times. Even as animated characters that aren't even people, like it's drawings, it's characters, it's animation as well on top of everything else. But it's also like, why can't we? Because I mean, and you think about it now, like how many younger people do you have same-sex parents probably these days? You know what I mean? Like they feel seen, they feel represented. Like, why are we going to take that away, especially from children who they probably just want to feel part of the conversation, or they want to feel part of this world of like, hey, that's somebody like me. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It just feels like you'd make less money when you alienate your audience, you know?
Yeah.
And you had other movies that made money. I mean, okay, that flopped and it didn't get the best reviews. It wasn't that great of a film. Okay. You just put it in the back burner and you keep going.
Just call it what it is. And it's fine.
But you don't need to target a certain part of the audience and say, this is why this happened, you know, unless the point you were trying to make was, man, audiences need to be more mature and more open to representation. Unless that was the point, was to say, look, we got a lot of backlash for this, but we're not going to back down from representation. Representation makes movies special. You know, representation is what makes our movies different. Representation is what is what keeps things fresh, and we're not going to stop doing that. We're not going to stop just showing different people and different perspectives and different views, etc. That's the only way I would have gotten up there and said something like this.
Right. Like, we're not going to let this stop us from doing it is the only reason you should make that statement if it's a thing. That's what I feel like. But
anyway.
The whole Disney Pixar thing, it really is wildly perplexing what they learn and don't learn from their own movies. Because God forbid people just go, that movie just wasn't good. Like, whatever. I guess now we need to move on to the Sean P. Diddy Combs of it all. He has officially been indicted for sex trafficking, like money laundering, and like racketeering. Which, if you don't know what racketeering is, a brief history of that, it's just, running a crime syndicate. Like, racketeering just means all the crimes. You're just doing all the crimes as a criminal organization. And so with that, when they listed off some of those crimes, they were like, including but not limited to, they said arson. He's burning stuff. They have evidence of him committing arson. So part of what he was doing was like hiring sex workers and supplying them with drugs and having what he called like sex offs or freak offs or whatever the fuck he was calling them. And it was just like sex marathons. And he would do it with drugs and all this other stuff. And the big downfall of all of this is he was recording them. He was recording his illegal activities and documenting them. And also in a very weird turn of events, he had 1,000 bottles of lube or baby oil. I've heard mixed things. It was either 1,000 bottles of lube, 1,000 bottles of baby oil, or 1,000 bottles combined of lube and or baby oil.
That's quite a bit.
It really is.
I mean, take it from someone who often uses baby oil. That's a lot.
It's like 155 gallons or something like that.
Yeah, that's quite a bit.
But yeah, like all this shit, he was just doing all this stuff. And yeah, it's, and it really does go back to like what we talked about when we talked about his houses getting raided and stuff. And, because I'd seen some people on TikTok, they were like, all right, is he I know he's a bad person and all, but like, is he going to jail? Cause like, they raided his house a long time ago and they haven't filed anything. And it goes back to what we talked about when we talked about his houses getting raided. It might be a minute. Because like I said, all that was the FBI just going, hey, let's get some more evidence. And then they're just sifting through it. And they're just accounting every single crime they could come at his ass with. And knowing the FBI, that meant they went through every one of those recordings. And they went, look, that's one more instance of drugs whilst these other crimes. And they just kept like a tally of every single crime that was committed on those tapes. And it took just so long. But also, he just got every like law thrown at him. Like, it's absurd. But yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about. Like, that's what the FBI was going to do, and that's what they did. They fucking brought the house. And it's one of those situations where, as I grow older and I become progressively more against the idea of what our justice system does and all these other things. You know, some people just need to be in jail, though. Like, that's just what it is. Some people just need to be in jail. And with that guy's just listing these crimes, when he just said arson, I was like, what the fuck? Like, all these other things, I was like, okay, sure. Like, it sounds like something he was doing based on all these things I've heard. And then just arson. I was like, who did he burn down? He burned something down, and I never even heard about it.
Man, this is like a comic book criminal villain, but real life. This is like a real life kingpin or something. This is terrible. This is terrible.
Even some of the crimes that he's listed, I even think Wilson Fisk would be like, bro, really?
Yeah. That's true. Even Wilson Fisk wouldn't touch it. Like, I'm just like, golly, man. It's like they say, reality can be stranger than fiction.
Like,
I mean,
why?
golly, you just can't make this stuff up.
And like, why is some of it like just feel like comic booky in that regard too? Of like whenever they list arson, was he burning down buildings to collect insurance money, or to like drive down property values so he could buy up a whole neighborhood? Like, what was he doing with these arsons? That's what I really want to know. What the fuck was he lighting on fire?
I imagine it had something to do with that. That seems like the likely candidate is it's some sort of a plot to buy up land, or that sounds like the likely culprit. Insurance money. Otherwise, why go through the trouble? Like, what else could it possibly be? Unless he just likes to see things on fire, which I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, what, just to know the neighborhood was burned and he did it.
He likes having his freak offs next to burning buildings.
Next to burning buildings. So you can watch the flames and the freak offs, man.
Dude, between Matthew Perry and this P. Diddy stuff, I haven't heard ketamine talked about this much since like Dare. Like when we were in Dare, they acted like ketamine was just everywhere. Like you legit had to be worried. Like if you went to Walmart and got Special K, you had to make sure you didn't get one of the ketamine boxes because that's also Special K. Like you had to be worried that you legit could make an innocent mistake and just be addicted to ketamine. And then I never heard of a single person ever actually doing it in real life. I have been around people doing drugs. And I'm not talking about smoking weed or any of that stuff. I have been in a room and then just people pull out a pipe and start doing meth. And you're just like, wow, this went really uncomfortable real fast. Because you're just sitting there. And King Kong, like the Peter Jackson King Kong, is on a television. And then just meth starts being done in the room you were in. Like, not even a warning, nothing. They just go, it's meth o'clock. And just started mething.
Started Breaking Bad on your King Kong watching ass.
Dude, it just, you're just like, holy shit. You know, like I said, I've been around people doing drugs. Still don't know anyone that's done ketamine. I mean, I'm sure that there are people that have done ketamine and maybe I just didn't know. Because I just don't feel like ketamine's a drug you brag about doing. Like, I don't think anybody's like, man, I got some ketamine. But like, all of a sudden, I just hear about all these people just doing ketamine. I was like, I guess that really is a thing. I'm sorry, Dare. I thought you made up a drug. Because I just didn't know any of my drug friends that did it. Now everybody doing it. So. Crazy times we live in. What movie are we doing this week? What are we talking about?
Speak No Evil.
That's it. The remake of the Dutch film.
Which I didn't see and barely found out about that after I watched this. And I was sad I didn't get to watch that.
If I'm thinking right, the Dutch couple in this movie is the Dutch couple from
the original.
I think so.
That's tight.
All right. You guys want to disobey this movie and speak about it?
Yes.
Yes.
God, that was awkward.
No, seamless transition.
I admit when I fucked it
up. Somebody will listen to me.
Nobody knows anything but you.
All the ketamine.
All right.
Messed up.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Come on.
Cinema Slayers.
Hey, Cinefans, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Slayers podcast. I'm Sterling, and as always, I'm joined by Heather and Jastin. And tonight we're going to talk about what we liked, didn't like, and everything in between with the new movie, Speak No Evil. We will go spoiler-free recommendations and scores, and then into a more spoiler-centric section with time codes in the description to allow you to jump around in both audio and video formats if you so require. With all that, I guess we'll have to go with our Resident Evil expert. But not Resident Evil, our Resident, Evil expert. No, I don't know. Our expert that knows a lot about evil is what I'm trying to say. Not about the Resident Evil franchise. Because, like, those are two different people. Because I know Jastin likes to think he's our Resident Evil expert, but he'll start going off for like half an hour about Chris Redfield, which proves he knows fucking nothing about that franchise or that IP in any way, shape, or form. It has no rights to ever talk about it.
Man, you got to get off Chris's back, man.
You got to get off his nuts.
Never. If Chris Redfield was the husband in this movie, it'd been over in 5 minutes.
If Leon S. Kennedy was the husband in this movie, it wouldn't have even started.
Damn it, I hate you.
See, Chris Redfield's just 5 minutes worse than Leon S. Kennedy. That's all I'm saying. You said so yourself.
I hate Leon. I hate that he's advertised as better. I don't believe it. I don't buy it.
It's not advertised in. They're just giving out factual data. Like, they're just going with the scientifically accurate things. Like, they're just like, hey, we don't want to lie to you. Leon S. Kennedy is better.
I hate how raw he is.
I mean, Jastin, you should even connect with Leon S. Kennedy even more than Chris Redfield. Chris Redfield's a dirty alcoholic.
He was. He has some vices, but he has muscles.
Why are you making it sound like Leon S. Kennedy does not have muscles?
He does, but they're more like boy band muscles.
Jastin, don't act like that. You know that motherfucker.
Okay, I can't really say that. But
the
Chris got the meathead muscles, though.
He's Ricochet in video game form. Like, you know,
yeah, pretty much.
All the acrobatics and whatnot that man can do. Why do you just want meat muscles, Jastin?
I don't know. I just like that Chris got big, man. I like it. You said, man, I'm gonna next time Wesker comes through, I'm gonna be ready for him. And I like how he got big for him.
But they're not functional.
Okay.
They're not really functional
Okay.
muscles. They're show muscles, Jastin. You want functional muscles.
Come on, man. You just don't feel like, man, Chris, that's a mighty, mighty, mighty man right there. With Chris is just standing there, man. The veins popping, ready to go.
Okay, hey,
Being
if
like,
you're in
where the
special
zombies
forces,
at?
if you're special
Where the
forces, you
zombies
don't want
at?
veins popping because that means you're slightly dehydrated. I want my special
Don't
forces.
science me. Don't science me right
Hydrated.
now. Don't science me. I just want Chris Redfield standing there going, where the zombies at? Where the tyrant at? I'm the tyrant now. I kind of like that. I like that attitude, man. I like that attitude. All jacked up and ready to go. I like that.
Jastin.
Mm-hmm.
Leon S. Kennedy took on an
Yeah.
entire town whilst protecting a little girl.
He did do that. Actually, Leon, first night on the job, city was overrun with zombies. First day
See,
on the job.
This is
And that man survived. That's why he's raw as hell. I get it, but man,
all right.
I just got to think for Chris, man.
Well, think about it like
Just
this.
gotta think for
Think about it
Chris.
like this, Jastin. Chris Redfield, whilst already being a special forces member, needed a team of people to make it through a house.
This is true. This is true.
Leon S. Kennedy, a simple police officer,
Mm-hmm.
needed
A
one
rookie.
person. Needed one person who wasn't even a special forces, was just a sibling of special forces
Yep.
to make it through an entire city of zombies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, doing things as a rookie cop with a civilian that Chris Redfield couldn't even dream of.
I get some of that, okay? But
I mean, I'm just
just
saying, when a
always had-
president's daughter goes missing, you don't call Chris Redfield. You call Leon S. Kennedy.
he was too busy, man. His phone went to voicemail. Man, I don't know.
He's too busy
Stop
drinking. Going, I'm sad about zombies.
No, he wasn't doing that. Drinking protein.
No, he's
No.
drinking alcohol, Jastin.
No. You can put protein in it.
I mean, you could, but that'd be gross.
Can you? I
Yeah.
hope not.
You'd have to put unflavored. You
Unflavored,
can't be doing no like
chocolate flavored protein Crown Royal. Ugh.
chocolate crown roll. Ew. I mean, I'm sure there's some, you could do. Like you could get like a coffee liqueur and probably mix that in with some stuff. You could probably take some of that, there's like peanut butter whiskey. You could put that with some chocolate, protein powder. Get swole and drunk.
That'd be sick. That's the kind of drunk I would want to be. If I was a drinker getting drunk, I want to be protein drunk. That sounds pretty hype.
Did you just say pretty hype?
Would that be like, oh, I want to go lift weights? I don't know. I don't know how a drunk person that wants to lift weights would act. I don't know. Oh, I want to lift weights. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Jastin,
I'm
you're just
trying
asking to throw up everywhere. No. Let's move on. Heather's sitting there going, guys, let's talk about this fucking movie. We're not talking about no Resident Evil games. Resident Evil hadn't even had a movie in like a year or two. Hadn't have a
No,
TV
that's
show.
why I hate you. How did you bring us here?
Because I was
Why
saying
are
our
we
Resident
here?
Evil expert. But Resident Evil's a thing too. I just wanted to clarify for the cinefans out there. Our resident expert on evil. That's what I should have said. It took me that long to actually come up with that. I've been thinking in the back of my head this entire time, how do I fucking phrase this? Yes, it's our resident expert on evil. That's me. Why did I do that whole spiel on things? I'm also the Resident Evil expert. I am both. Son of a bitch. This movie's pretty good. I don't love it. I think we've seen a lot of aspects of this movie in several things. But I mean, James McAvoy has such a magnanimous performance in this that even when it is shit you've seen before and it's characterizations you've seen before and things like that, it still feels just slightly special because the way he's doing it, the energy and the charisma and all, but also the viciousness and also just the
physicality.
Yeah, the physicality, but also I don't want to say cringe, but like the malevolence that he brings also with it. Just every aspect of what he does in this movie is just turned up a notch. And it makes for a good watch. It makes for a tense movie. Like I said, we've seen movies like this. It's not, that original, it's a remake within itself. But there are worse things you could do than watch a competently made movie with a lead actor that just fucking sucks you in, chews you up, and spits you out. I mean, it really is. It's a magnetic viewing with him. In fact, that's part of the problem with this movie for me. When he's not on screen, it's less interesting. Not that these people were bad. You had new Terminator in it. And she was fine. Got no problems with her. What was it? I had no problems with anybody, but just no one was as good as him. So when he's not there, I'm just like, but where's James? And that does cause like an imbalance in a movie when you're just craving not the main character the whole movie. But outside of that, it really is. It's a fine movie. It's a good movie. It's a pretty good movie. It's not great, but James McAvoy is great. And, overall, glad I watched it. Jastin, what about you?
Yeah. This is one of those movies where I think it had a challenge because I saw the preview for this what felt like 1,000,000 times. I mean, I just felt like I saw this preview no less than 106,000 times.
With that, Jastin, I got a question. Do you try to avoid previews when you go to the movies?
Man, I may need to start.
I've really, at least at local AMC's up here, it's roughly 22 to 27 minutes before the movie starts. It really sucks. They might throw 2 more trailers in there. So it's kind of a crapshoot. But I try to get in as close to that mark as I can. Because we go every week. Sometimes I've gone multiple times a week. I can't be seeing these trailers nonstop for these fucking movies. It feels like they've got 8 trailers that play for all the movies until they come out. And then all they're doing is swapping one trailer. So I've still got to see the other 7 again. Like, fuck that. Like, no. Like, I try to avoid it. Plus, all the trailers are online. If I want to watch them, I go watch them online. That's my suggestion. Is to try to time it out to see if you can get like a good time frame that the local theater establishment you go to avoid them.
Yeah, that might just be best because it does get tiring seeing the same ones over and over again.
I'm sorry. It just made me think of one more thing. It's just Like, I hate it too when you actually do see a new one. You're like, oh, that looks pretty good. And then you see it the next week. And the next week. And the next week. And then by the time the movie's coming out, you're like, why the fuck hadn't this movie come out yet? I've been seeing trailers for it the last 17 weeks in a row. And you're no longer excited. Because you've just been inundated and just burned with that trailer.
Yeah. That's very much how this was. I saw, you see the trailer the first time, you're like, oh, James McAvoy playing a psycho crazy dude. Oh, man, sign me up. Then I felt like just for months I saw this trailer. Like it was just on everything. And I think the big challenge that this had is that watching the trailer, you know exactly what has to happen. You know that you've got this, just watching that trailer, you know that you have this family that is unsuspecting, and then they go on to a vacation to visit this family that just seems, and you know that there's going to be something. You just know that there's something wrong with James McAvoy. You just know that there's something wrong with this other family and this kid that's running around and he can't seem to speak. And you can just tell, that, and even the way the trailer is, it starts where it seems like they're innocent and it's charming and they're having these good moments. And then you're seeing intensity and stuff like that at the end of the trailer. So going into this, I think that's a big challenge for this movie. You don't know how things are going to happen, but you have an idea of what's going to happen. You have an idea of it's going to start one way and it's going to have to go this way because this is where the conflict is going to be. So, but even in the movie's previews, and I think what's great about the movie is that even in the previews, it was like they're advertising McAvoy's performance. That's what you're seeing in the quotes. James McAvoy is magnetic. James McAvoy is terrifying. James McAvoy delivers this, delivers that. Just about every quote in those previews was about James McAvoy. So it's almost like they're saying, when you come to this movie, that's what you're coming for. You're coming to see the McAvoy performance. You know what this is. You know what's going to happen. You know exactly what this movie is. And you've probably seen a movie like this before, or maybe it was two people instead of a family, or et cetera, et cetera. But you kind of know what this is, guys. But you really ought to come to see James McAvoy. And I mean, if that's what the movie's going to advertise, if the movie's going to tell you, look, you're coming to see one great performance this year, they are correct. I mean, they are correct about that. Like,
would you say that this is the most honest movie since Snakes on a Plane?
It might be. It just might be, because they straight up tell you, okay, this is kind of what the plot is going to be, but this is who you're showing up for. This is why you come to this. So this movie, I think the success of it, or the word of mouth of it, is made and broken by, was his performance worth the price of a ticket? And undoubtedly it is. I've always liked James McAvoy, and for my money, he is he's one of the underrated actors in Hollywood, because he just, anytime he does, especially a role like this, where he can kind of have this layered character and show two sides of him, where he can be charming, but then he can be intense, and then he can just be downright evil. He's so good at that. He's so good at that. And he just has a charisma about him. He just, his mannerisms and his facials, man. Oh my God. I don't know if there is another actor. If I was training to be an actor, would there be somebody that I would want to teach me how to do facials more than him? I mean, God, he's so good at it.
I think it's body manipulation.
Yeah, that too.
Like the way he can just do stuff with his neck muscles just out of nowhere and stuff. Like, and he's very bulked out in this movie. He's typically leaner. He's very bulked out in this movie, but he really just feels like he's got a command over his body, like his musculature, like that he can just do things and make muscles twitch and tense and just give like that extra level of physicality.
And you haven't even seen Split, I think, right? I don't think you've seen it. And you would have seen
Oh God, no! It's an M. Night Shyamalan movie. I'm boycotting
or
that.
Glass. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that one either. Yeah.
Yeah, so you even more so would be saying that if you had seen him in those, because he's like peak level of doing it at those because he's supposed to be. But yeah, so the fact that even without those movies where he's like supposed to play into that and you notice it, that definitely says something about just his abilities.
Yeah. And speaking about his body, like, how people say, one like phrase or a phrase that people use for when you're trying really hard or giving your best effort is they say you put your whole body into it, right? Well, that definitely is him when it comes to acting in a nutshell. I mean, to your point, he puts his whole body into his performance. That's everything. I'm talking the lips to the eyebrows, to the eyelashes, to the neck muscles that you're talking about, to the just everything. I mean, he really is an actor that puts his whole self into his performance. And honestly, that is worth the price of this ticket because for my money, there aren't too many better performances you are going to see this year than this one. Like as far as just an entertaining. Now, of course, I'm not saying hand him the Oscar, but this is one of the better movie carrying, impactful performances of the year. I feel like it's this one. And then the guy in the Alien Romulus movie that played the
was it
David Johnson?
Yeah,
I think.
David Johnson. Yeah.
Yes. That another stellar one, but this one, for many different reasons, I think is like one of those performances that's just a cut above what I've seen this year, and he definitely carries the movie because a lot of it you kind of know where this is going. And that's not to say that the ride to get there isn't fun, because this movie's all about the journey. And this whole little lesson about not speaking up or not saying something when you should or not being forthcoming about or honest because you're afraid to hurt other people, you're afraid of the consequences, it can be a little scary, et cetera, et cetera. And like, the situations you can put yourself in when you're too polite or you're not truthful to yourself or you don't speak up and stuff like that. It's a good little message, and it works with the dynamics with both of these families and as they're going through all this conflict and everything. And like you said, Sterling, the other actors, the other people, they're pretty good too. They are. I didn't hate them. I liked some of the family dynamics. I thought some of the dialogue was believable for the most part. All right. And do the characters in this make bad decisions? Yes, they do. But I would say that they aren't bad decisions just because these are stupid characters and this is unintelligently written and this is just bad storytelling. I would say that they are making bad decisions because of the types of characters they are, because of the characterizations, and because of the arcs that we have, because it leads to them making, I'll just say, different decisions later. It's all kind of integral to the story. And I also think part of it, part of the tension and part of the like building the intensity, and part of it is you are sitting there going, why don't you just do this? But a big part of it though is that, but I think if you know a person like this, or have been a person like this, and I think growing up earlier in my life, I might have been a person like this. Not that I'm going to be not leaving a house and shit. But what I mean is I get I understand being that person and being pressured to feel like I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I want to please people. I want to not say the wrong thing. You know, what was that old lesson from some of those old cartoons and stuff? If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. You know, that's kind of, this movie is kind of attacking that, you know. This is kind of a cautionary tale to sort of refute that type of thing. So I understand it. I understand how a person can be manipulated in that way. So when it gets to certain parts of the movie and certain characters are saying certain things, ultimately it all pretty much made sense. Now that doesn't mean it's perfect. There are definitely some flaws, and maybe there's some execution things here and there that maybe we could have done differently. But overall, I enjoyed this too. I thought it was a fun ride. I thought it builds good tension. And even though I guess I can say I knew where the destination was eventually going to go, it was fun how we got there. Things didn't happen exactly how I thought they would. Every now and then, this throws you a little curve. And just when you think that bubble's about to pop, it doesn't. And then we keep going a little more and a little more and a little more. And then it's like, oh, well, when is it going to pop? And then, you know, and when it does pop, I guess you could say in the third act, that was fun too. It has a pretty fun third act. I think when it all comes together, in that third act, it's pretty fun and it was entertaining, and ultimately you walk out satisfied. You walk out feeling like you didn't waste your time. So yeah, great performance by McAvoy, and I too enjoyed this movie as well.
All right, Heather, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I wanted to see this movie was James McAvoy. I mean, I don't think that that's going to be anybody. I don't think anybody else is going to want something different from that. Like you guys said, I mean, the way that they were promoting him as the character he was in this movie, even from just the previews and the trailers, you're just like, I just need to see this. And I mean, I agree too. Like James McAvoy, for some reason, everybody knows that he's so talented, yet for some reason he is still very underrated, and I can't figure out why. But like, I mean, I would honestly put him up there for me as like a favorite of mine because he's so versatile. And it's one of those where even when he is playing the antagonist or the villain or the whatever, you root for him, not necessarily because you like want him to win, but you're just like, I just want to see him. Kind of like what Sterling said with this. It's like, I just want to know what you're about to do with your performance. Like whatever performance it is or whatever character you are, I just need to see what you're going to do. And I don't think that I've ever seen a movie with him where he's phoned in a performance. Like you're right. He's full body all the time in anything I've seen. Even if it's not a good movie necessarily, he is always good. He is consistently good in everything he does. And I don't know if maybe it's just because the movies that he chooses to be a part of, maybe because they're not part of the most of the time, the Oscar award world, maybe that's why, you know, he doesn't get as much credit as he should. And I know he's an Oscar nominated actor, but I'm like, he's done so many things that you're just like, I mean, even it might sound silly, but even him as young Professor X, I love it. He's so good at it. Like, just, it's the facials, the facial expressions, like any emotion that he's feeling, you see it on his face. Like, he fully just transforms into like being lived in whatever character he's playing. And this is no exception. This is actually just exactly the same thing. Just the subtleties and the nuances of how he does his performance here. Just like like you said, the looks and just even just the quick change of facial expression from like the niceties, pretending to be like nice and kind and polite to I'm actually very angry underneath. Like, just that quick change that he does. I'm just like, it's unreal, actually, just how good he is at it. Like, it doesn't make sense to be that good at it. And like, he, you know, you don't think of him just as a guy who plays villains. Like, there's actors that are just like, they're known for being amazing villains. Case in point, Vincent D'Onofrio. He's just the best villain ever in anything, but that's what he's known for. And James McAvoy isn't known as that guy, but he plays a villain as good as like anyone up there. You know what I mean? Like, he can do any role and he will nail it, whatever it is. So yeah, all that being said, I completely agree. He carried this movie. He was the shining light of this movie. Anytime he's doing anything, you're intrigued, you're enthralled. You want to know, like, what is the next crazy thing that he might do or say? And it does kind of keep you on your toes a little bit. I do think this movie suffers from the preview showing too much of it. I think it would have been well done to just keep it as minimal as possible. Like, you get the point of what the movie is, but you don't see just those little creepy things that happen in their interactions as much, because they show a lot of it in the trailers. And I just think it would have been nice to not have it. Like, I think about that movie Barbarian. Like, that is one movie that I would say props to them for not giving away really anything about that movie. They actually did the trailer for that. The preview for that was done well, because you're like, this looks creepy and interesting, but they don't give anything away. And unfortunately, this movie, I mean, you just kind of, the moments that are coming based on the trailer. And I just wish there was a little bit more of us not knowing certain things that were going to be coming, because, and even when they do, there's still parts of it that you don't see in the trailer. So you're like, yep, that's pretty creepy. But for the most part, when that scene, like, you see the scene in the movie, you're like, oh, I know what's about to come. You know what I mean? And like, I just think that that's the unfortunate thing about just how they did the preview for this movie. But that aside, I do think the other acting was good. Mackenzie Davis is a really good character in this movie. The wife, I'm forgetting her name, James McAvoy's wife in this movie was good too. She did a really good job. Everybody was really good. And you're right. Like, there is no bad performance in this movie, but it's really hard to focus more on those performances when you have James McAvoy doing what he's doing in this movie. So yeah, but I think I'm honestly, even the little boy was really great too. So the way the story unfolds, the tension that they build up for you, and in the way that they build it is done really well. And so yeah, I think this is a good movie. I think it's really solid. I also didn't see the original. I am confused as to why they're remaking it 2 years after the first one came out, but that's neither here nor there. So
that's easy. The other one was in Dutch.
Right.
That really is it. The other one's in a foreign language. So
yeah, they were like, we need to do this movie, but in English so that other people will watch it, basically. I think they did that with another movie called, I think it's called, not Mommy Dearest, but like Good Night Mommy or something like that. Was a foreign film that was really good and really creepy. And I want to say last year they did a remake of it in English with Naomi Watts. And I'm just like, oh no, but it's like the same movie. So why do we need it? And so I don't know how accurate this is to that one.
They do that a lot though. I mean, what was it? Eternal Affairs, The Departed. They weren't that far apart from each other. Let the Right One In, Let Me In.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a very common thing to take a foreign film and just put it in English and go, money, please.
Yep.
And it works. And I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, because I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of them where the originals are better. I think, Sterling, you've actively talked about Let the Right One In is way better than the remake.
It's not that it's way better. It's the fact that they are the exact same movie. They didn't change a damn thing. And okay, I've already seen it. Like, if you got to at least change something to other than the language.
Yeah.
The language can't be the only thing you change. You know, you got to offer me something else. You got to make it just slightly different, you know? And yeah, it's the exact same movie. And I'm like, cool, if I'm going to watch the exact same movie, I'm just going to watch the original because it's the one I saw first. It's the one I like more because, you know, it's the movie that was original. So It was fresh and original and fantastic. And, you know, Let Me In was just I've seen this movie literally.
You're right.
You know, it's the bad situation about it. Cause I mean, especially with Let the Right One In, I mean, that was one of those movies where, Jastin and I ended up actually watching that together with, Devin back in the day. And it was a Redbox movie. We Redboxed it. And it was one of those things we're reading the descriptions and somebody said it's probably the best vampire movie in like the last decade or something, like some crazy off the wall statement like that. And we're like, oh man, this movie's going to suck. Cause of course it's not that, all this other stuff. And then we watched it and we're like, yeah, it was.
Yep.
Yeah, it was.
We all agreed it was.
And you're like, damn, how do you go and make the best of a genre that's an old ass genre? Like, and they did. And then they went, man, let's make the best exact carbon copy of a movie remake that since the last one when they did Let Me In. Like, so, I mean, to be fair, this could be a carbon copy of that. Where I think this movie might have the benefit of the doubt, though, is let's say the plot and everything is a carbon copy of the first one. This one at least has James McAvoy. So it like, you're like, all right. I mean, no offense to anybody in that Dutch movie. You know, I doubt any of them are James McAvoy. So that's the difference maker in this movie, at least, is just you get a McAvoy in it.
Yeah. And you can never go wrong with a McAvoy, honestly. So that is totally fair. Yeah, I think that I also really like the scenery and like this beautiful backdrop they have of this movie, like just in juxtaposition with the creepy elements of the story being told. I think it has like this haunting factor to it, which I thought was a really interesting and cool way to do it. And yeah, I think it's just shot really well. And I feel like sure it's not everything is 100% tight with the story, but it's serviceable enough to where it doesn't take you out of the movie. There's nothing that takes you out to be like, this is just dumb and just completely unbelievable and all these other things. Like there's nothing in this movie that does that. But yeah, it is honestly really its biggest downfall is just the fact that you unfortunately know moments that are going to happen based off of if you've seen the preview. That's honestly the biggest fault that this movie has, is what I would say. I agree that they don't always make the best decisions. I don't think that they necessarily handle everything the way that would be best, but also if I'm in the situation they were in, would I do it any differently? Probably not. I might have even done more like worse decision making, maybe, if it was me. So who knows, but I just, and I think in that sense, it's nice that the kind of like what you said, Jastin, like the stupid decisions that they make are because they're just, it's the characters and the decisions that the characters would make just being who they are. And it's not just like, oh, the movie just needed them to do something stupid just to get to this other point in the movie. I'm really glad that they didn't really have a point in the movie that felt like that. So they had that going for it. Maybe Sterling disagrees with some of that, but for the most part, I think that kind of rings true for me, at least. And yeah, I think it's throughout, it keeps you invested. It kept me invested throughout with this whole movie to know what's going to happen, what's about to go down. Like, just really, it gives you this uneasy feeling. Even if you know things that are coming, you still get that uneasiness because of the tension they build and the performances they have here. So when you sort of see everything that unfolds with the whole story of what's happening, you're just kind of like, oh, okay then. Like, it just kind of, it really adds to that element of tension, because you're just like, oh no, we've just found certain things out. What's going to have to go down now? So everything kind of added together in that way, which was really good. But yeah, it's a pretty solid movie. I agree, Sterling, not great, but McAvoy is great. So that kind of, he does sort of elevate this movie to be better than if anybody else were doing that performance, what this probably would have been. And not that the movie itself was bad. Even without McAvoy, movie's pretty good. He just makes it better with his performance.
Recommendations and scores?
Yep.
Recommendations and score.
Heather, go ahead and go.
Yeah, I recommend it. I think it's, if you like thriller, suspense type of movies, if you like James McAvoy, even if you like I don't know, I can't say if you like the original, like hopefully you like the original also and you would see this, but I think, yeah, if that's in your lane of style and type of movie you like, I think you'll enjoy this. You'll definitely enjoy McAvoy's performance. I think the story is good. I think it, it's a great suspense thriller type of film. And those are, again, tend to be my favorite if we're going more horror leaning with our suspense thriller. This is the type that I like for that. I think this is really well done. And yeah, there's nothing about it specifically that just makes me say this is just not a good movie. Yeah, it's got a little bit of something, I think, for most people. But yeah, I do recommend it. I'm gonna give it 74 unstable ladders to get your stuffed bunny down out of 100.
Jastin, what about you?
Yeah, it's going to be a recommend for me. We said it. Like, McAvoy's great. The story is simple enough and easy enough to follow. And even though there are moments where it could have gotten really stupid and just could have really gotten crazy, I think in the third act, I think for the most part, this is a movie that makes most of the right decisions. It makes most of the right decisions for the characters. It makes most of the right decisions when it's telling the story. And ultimately, that is why it wins. It has a great top-notch performance that we've seen this year. And Everybody else is it ranges from good to serviceable, and the plot is the same way. The actual story is the same way. There are parts where the story is really good and it's really building tension well, and then there are some parts not so good, but it's never stupid or dumb or just an insult to the intelligence. And then in the end, it's got a fun, compelling third act. I thought a very intense kind of fast-paced third act to contrast with how it was building everything. So it does it just right. It builds, and then it gives you a bunch of brouhaha in the third act, and then we're done. We're out of that thing. And nothing really is left to the imagination. It's a very simple, straightforward thing. And sometimes that's better than trying to be too complex or too cute or too interpretive or all of that kind of stuff. Sometimes a movie like this hits the spot. And I think if you're looking for something that's just a little different from the other movies on the board, like this will hit that spot. This feels like it's almost like right there where Blink Twice is. It's not the same the same genre, but I feel like it's on the same level of, if you're needing that little different bit of a taste this year, this movie and like that movie are like two movies that are a little different from the field, and you can kind of get your fix if you're looking for something a little different. So yeah, we'll give it 78 brick bashing good times out of 100.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys for the most part. Yeah, I recommend it. Yeah, it's pretty good. I do think there are some dumb parts. I do. I think there are some parts and some things that happen that were dumb. I didn't like them. Kind of pissed me off. Now, some of it was intentional, and I'll give the filmmakers that. It is like, it's these people from America that moved to England that don't know shit about shit, and yeah, so they're naive and dumb about certain things, sure. So I get those things, but I don't know. There are a couple of dumb scenes in this movie, and I'm like, no, just no. That's not a thing. We're not doing that. So, I'm a touch lower than you guys. Let's give it. I'm giving it a 70. A flat 70. 70. Fuck that stuffed bunny. Out of 100. Cinescore is a 74. Spoilers?
Yep.
Spoilers.
If you know your daughter has an emotional support rabbit, why the fuck are you forgetting it everywhere? I'm not necessarily blaming the daughter. I get the daughter being forgetful and not needing it until she thinks she needs it. You know what I mean? Doesn't think about it whatsoever, but until she does, and then it becomes the most important thing in the world. I totally get that. That's the way kids are. As this child's parents, it is your responsibility. If you aren't going to address the reasons she has said rabbit and get that fixed and all this other stuff, whatever, if you ain't doing that, then your sole priority outside of that, then for your, child's mental health is knowing where the fuck that rabbit is at all times. You're putting trackers on it. You're putting fucking air tags on it. You're putting fucking you're buying 27 of them, and every night you're taking Polaroids of it, so that way if it gets like a little tear or a rip, you're making it on the other ones and all this shit. You know what I mean? You're documenting the fuck out this thing to where you don't have to deal with some of this bullshit. 2, and this one really pissed me off. If you're out on a roof and a crazy person knocks over your ladder and they fall to their death, just climb back up and go through the window. Why? Why are you going back down? Why are you falling? Why are you picking up no, just go back to the house then. Like, don't do all that shit. Don't break your ankle, because that's not going to help you or your family or anybody escape that shit. You go back to the house. What was that scene? That made me so mad. When he's like, nah, I'll just jump down. No. That's not a thing. We did that just to break his ankle, just to add some tension. No, you just go through the house. You can build the tension because they don't know where he is, and even though he's screaming from taking acid to the face, and you know exactly where he is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you do it that way. I don't know. That scene just really drove me nuts. And like it's the whole rabbit thing. Like I said, I don't blame the little girl. I blame the parents. They were so bad. They were bad parents with that shit. I just didn't like that. When it comes to something like positive with the spoilers, it's kind of a mixed bag. It's a positive and a negative. That scene where she cuts her finger, and they're like, "Oh, good thing you're a doctor," and he's like, "I'm not a doctor." Even though I've seen that scene no less than 2,974 times, because it's in every fucking trailer, every commercial, it's in everything for this movie. That scene is still very effective. Now, because once again, it hinges so much on James McAvoy's ability to just flip on a dime. I mean, just that pinpoint accuracy of, you know, one thing to the next, and bam, it's that quick flip that he does. And so that scene still works, especially within the context of the movie. Knowing that scene's happening because of the trailer, it doesn't completely ruin it. Which, you know, like, as I think a testament to what they did with this and all this other stuff, because it's a very good scene. I just wish they hadn't done it and showed it at all. Why do you take a scene like that? Why do you watch this movie and go, man, let's ruin that great scene we have? That sounds like a bang up job. What are you doing? And I'm not even mad at the people that made the trailers. They typically have no idea. They are just sent random shit. And it's all cut a trailer out of these random ass scenes you get. So I ain't blaming them, but come on. Just don't send that scene. Send anything else. Like, you know what kind of trailer this movie could have done is you kind of have the beginning, like you have the trailer of like, oh, they're becoming friends. And oh, you got a couple of the little awkward, weird, off-putting scenes. And do something where it's silent, but like music playing of just some of the crazy, angry stuff. So you get zero context for it. You get the visual of it. So you're like, oh shit, some angry shit's happening. Whoa. But you don't spoil any of the specificity. I know I fucked up that word. I have problems with that word, but for some reason I still try to say it.
I actually think you said it right.
I didn't.
Oh.
I fucked up the end of it.
Specificity.
Oh, I thought that's what you said. So,
No,
okay.
I didn't quite get the itty at the end.
I mean, and I get what you're saying. Like, even if it was one of those where you hear the couple being like, oh, they seem nice, right? But then, like, the visual we're seeing is just clips of his volatile anger. Something like that would have been like, oh, what is happening here? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, just something like that. Like, or just have some like upbeat Italian song. Weren't they in Italy at the beginning of the movie? Was it Italy or Greece or wherever the fuck they were at? Like, yeah, just to get like a nice little upbeat Italian song. Because it's all, hey, we're in Italy. We're like Russell Crowe and a Vespa's going, ciao. And it's just like that vibe with just scenes of anger and that viciousness and all that other stuff. I just think that would have been an interesting visual thing to do and might have at least cut some of the ruining out. Just an idea. Oh, what about you, Heather? What are some spoilery things you thought about or liked or didn't like with this movie?
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, there's sometimes when I don't catch trailers. Like, I remember for the Saw X movie, I just didn't see that trailer. I was able to somehow avoid seeing anything with that trailer. But with this one, it was just unavoidable. It was just everywhere for so long that it just, you were going to see it at some point. But yeah, I think I will say, like, your whole thing that you were talking about with like the rabbit and how the parents handled that, I actually agree. I think, yeah, they just, and I know that the dad essentially was trying to be like, I don't care because I need her to get over this problem that she has, and was a little bit distant and like removed from it because he just didn't want her to have to rely on it anyway. But that doesn't mean you're careless with it, because if you do that, again, what happens if you're careless and you know that that's like an emotional support thing for your kid? You get her really having a really difficult time dealing with it, and, you know, having moments of just really bad anxiety because she doesn't have the thing that helps her through that. So yeah, I agree. That was not the best call. I also, one thing I will say that was not, I mean, and I know it was just, this was probably the one part where I feel like they just did this to get to the next scene. But when they're in the car and they obviously realize they have to go back for the rabbit when they're trying to leave, and she's like, no, like, because she kind of knows something's going on with the little boy. And she's like, no, they're going to do to the rabbit what they did to him, or something to that effect is what they said. These parents asked no questions about that statement. She said it 2 or 3 times. She's like, no, they're going to do to him, they're going to do the same thing to him, or they're going to hurt him too, or something. They just said nothing. They were not even curious about what that meant. And I was like, I would be asking all the questions. I'd be like, what do you mean? Who's going to do what? Like, and who did they do that to before? Like, they didn't ask any questions. And I feel like she was very clearly saying, like, something bad's going to happen, you know, and like, it just was very, it wasn't even just like oh, I think something bad will happen because I left my rabbit behind. Clearly she's stating, like, they're going to hurt the rabbit like him, meaning the little boy. There were no follow-up questions or anything like that. I just thought that was very strange, especially if you already are iffy about this couple. You already think they're weird. You already think something's off with them. And you hear your daughter say that. You ask questions. I don't know. I just thought that was very strange that in that moment, all of their thinking this couple was weird didn't come out when she said that. Like, they weren't even more like protective and upset and worried after she said that. So that was interesting. But I also realized they needed to get to the scene where they go back. But yeah, so I think aside from that, I do feel like, all the other decisions made in that regard were character choices. Um, you're right about the latter thing, and I don't know if if that was supposed to be, finally the husband standing up for his family and doing putting himself out there for once, and that's what that was supposed to represent. But I agree. I think that, yeah, thinking about it, they should have just been like, cool, there's one person left who has acid to his face. We should be good to at least pass him by, to at least outrun him out the front door and something. So yeah, those were the only moments that were just kind of like, okay, what are we doing here with this? But I do think just the buildup they do, like even with the little boy trying to explain to the girl what's going on, even that is done really well too, where it's just like he can't communicate, right? And that's something else I really also wish they wouldn't have put in the trailer of him like doing the, where they clearly cut his tongue. Like, from the trailer that that's a thing. They didn't have to do that. They really could have avoided that, so that could have been that twist, like, oh my gosh moment in the movie, because I feel like I knew going in that that's obviously why he's not speaking, because of that scene. They just should have not done that, so that there's some element of like, what's going on with this boy and why is he like this? You just know from the trailer, unfortunately. But the way that they kind of have him trying to show the little girl what's going on, and him having this language barrier when communicating, and just the desperation of him doing whatever he can to try to get her to understand, was done really well. I really like how they did the dynamic between the two kids in this. And that was, it felt realistic. It felt believable. Even the little girl being like, I just don't understand, like something's off, but I just don't understand what you're trying to tell me. Yeah, I thought that was really good. And, just the, I like that they kind of play to this couple from America that's coming here. It's like you could tell that because they're trying to deal with some issues in their own marriage, it feels like, especially the guy, I'm forgetting the guy's name in the movie, but you could tell he kind of is envious a little bit of this couple, right? He's a little bit like, man, they just seem like they're so in love and they always have fun, and they just seem like the coolest people. Like, you could tell he feels like he wish he had that kind of relationship in life that they had. It was almost like an envious standpoint with it, which I think is why he was so adamant about, yeah, let's make friends with them, let's go visit them, and all these things. And it's just, I like that they played it as like, oh, we want to be more like them, but then realizing, like, as they get to know this couple better and seeing just how off they are, I think it just kind of helped them realize even more in their own relationship issues. Like, all right, well, maybe our problem is not nearly as bad as this couple and what they're dealing with. Like, sure, they're more passionate and they're more whatever, but they're also a lot more volatile and a lot more unpredictable. And maybe we don't want that. I feel like you can kind of see the wheels turning as they're getting to know this couple of like, we made a mistake. We thought we wanted to be like them and be around them, and we just don't. It's not our thing. And yeah, just the progression of them realizing who this couple really is was really, really good. Yeah, like even just you're right, the scene with I'm not a doctor, which I'm going to be honest with you, I still don't know if he actually was a doctor. Like, you don't really ever find out if that's true, which is kind of brilliant to be like, cool, we're still questioning anything this guy says at this point. But like, that moment was really good because, yeah, just him switching just everything about his tone and his personality and his expressions so quickly was perfect. But also just the little subtle things he's like when they're going, was it cliff diving or whatever they were doing? They jumped into the water, and like just his really like super creepy but subtle thing when he's just like trying to tell the guy like, yeah, your wife has a good body. Like just things like that where he just is a very subtle like, yeah, look at her. And you're just like, okay, like you're being creepy about it, but you're also kind of just a charming person. And the fact that James McAvoy is a good looking guy, if it was anybody else that had said it the way he did, it would have come across just completely like you're a creeper. And that's the brilliance of his performance. It's because he is charismatic. He knows that he's charming. He knows he's this good looking guy that can get away with anything. And he's using it fully to his advantage with this couple. And it's just interesting to see it play out in just different ways. Just the microaggressions or even just the passive aggressiveness of him at times when he's like, yeah, all right. Yeah. Whenever you leave, make sure to send me a text, like just like really trying to throw their relationship problems in their face in a subtle way. Things like that were just, he did it so well to where it seems normal, but to them, they know that it's not normal. I don't know. I just, there's so many like nuances to this, and like, and you're almost like, you don't fully know what their motive is at first. Cause it does feel like, oh, we just want to see like, it almost feels, especially after they have that dinner together, like maybe this couple's swingers. Maybe they're trying to see if this other couple is too. Like they're trying to kind of push their limits to see like what they are and aren't okay with. And for a little bit of the movie, you feel like maybe that's what this is. They're just like, we want to see what you're actually comfortable with and not. But then it just turns into a completely different, more like dangerous, absurd thing that it turns into, of them just, wanting to take this, family, or take the kid at least, and kill the family or kill the couple. Like, and I know that there was this, like in one of the scenes when the wife is trying not to get killed, says like, oh, hey, I was his first person that he took. Like, I'm a victim too, basically, is what she was trying to say. And again, like, there's just so many things said that we still don't know with just how this couple is, what is and isn't true. Was that true? Part of me is like, I think it was, but I also, maybe it's not. Maybe that was just a thing to say so that she wouldn't be killed, and like, even if it is true, obviously that doesn't matter at this point because she's helping him. But it's just so like interesting and brilliant that they're like, you still don't know anything about this couple. You actually still don't, in the movie, knowing anything about them because of just these lies that they've created and just how they really manipulate what they want people to know about them in such a way to where the audience is also on that same page. So I just really liked that aspect of it. And yeah, that's all I have for now. I might chime in later, but that's what I got for now.
What you got, Jastin?
Cool. So, I think just to start with some likes real quick, definitely the way that this was shot and where we were. I mean, there were just some beautiful backgrounds and landscapes, and whether we were in Italy or what was that, the British countryside, where did we go visit them? Where were we? We went to
it was somewhere there.
Okay.
It was like right outside of England, I thought, for some reason.
Wasn't it just Ireland? Or it has to be something like that. I mean, it's not.
Maybe.
I mean, outside of England is Ireland or Scotland. But.
Okay. Well, wherever we were, there were just some beautiful shots of when we were traveling up dirt roads or going, there were just some really picturesque scenes. So I thought that, just where we were, it looked beautiful. And I do like what you said, Heather, that juxtaposition with this kind of volatile, horrible situation that we are going into. Um, I think the biggest strength of this movie is the dynamics with the two families. Um, that's really what the strength, that's where I think the meat of it is, and kind of what everybody represents, or kind of just how the story played with all those different elements. I didn't have too much of a problem with the bunny because the way I understood it is the parents had two conflicting views about it. One of them saw the bunny as a crutch and something that she needed to grow out of and get rid of and stuff like that. So, you'd almost think if she did lose it or it did get ripped up or something, that parent might be like, oh, good, maybe we're one step closer to getting rid of this thing. then you had one going, no, you should be more attentive. It's something that's really important to her and things like that. And I think us seeing kind of just how much it affected her mentally is definitely an indictment on the parents, but I don't look at it as a flaw in the film more than I look at it as a flaw in these parents, because I think that was kind of the point. These parents are flawed. That's kind of the point. Like, they are neglecting speaking up about certain things, saying certain things. They're avoiding certain issues because it feels better to avoid. That's sort of what they are in a lot of situations. Like, there would be these times where they would be talking to each other and they would go back and forth a little bit, but then what they're actually doing in their actions, especially interacting with the McAvoy family, I guess you could put that in quotes, but the McAvoy family, if it was, because there's some maybe and maybe not of that. But like, it's interesting, like with the two kids that, like, I remember that one scene where mom was like, hey, when she was like, hey, there's something weird about this family and everything, she was trying to tell them constantly through this movie. And she was like, look, you may feel that way, but you don't need to say that out loud. Like, kind of like, look, that's rude, or you don't want to say that, or come on, this family we're guests in these people's house. These unspoken rules and manners and kind of these things that are kind of that we've all learned. I think we've all learned little things like this, American etiquette and manners and things like that. And her saying, hey, don't say any of those things out loud. So it's interesting that you have this one child who is being taught and told not to speak. And then you have one who can't speak, and all he's trying to do is speak. That all he's trying to do is let somebody know what's going on and let somebody know that, hey, I'm not really their son. I was kidnapped. I am a captive. You know what I mean? So I liked that contrast. I liked that juxtaposition. And it was kind of what you were saying, Heather, too. You've got these two people that seem so free and honest with each other and what they're feeling, and just very outward with it and everything like that. Juxtaposed with these two people that struggle with the openness, that struggle with that. And you saw evidence of that with the wife and the father, just how they would go back and forth. And it's interesting because as this vacation is developing, it seemed like actually with their interactions with McAvoy and his family, it seemed like in some ways it was therapeutic for them. Like they were starting to open up a little bit more and be honest about things and talk about things and stuff like that. So you can see how some of these things were helping them. But I like how when you look at McAvoy and the villain of him, I love how it all played into this whole thing about luring and how he likes to play with his food. He likes to play with the prey. And it's not enough just to kill you or anything like that. It's the luring. It's the manipulation that he loves. And like you said, Heather, when you were talking about that scene when they went out to dinner, and it's the testing of what you can get away with. And it wasn't even so much like, it's like, how much can we manipulate these people? Like, and I feel like McAvoy in this, that this character was the kind of character where however far you would let him go, he was going to go. You know, will you let me wife swap? Let's see if you'll let us, let's see if you'll be down for that. You know, let's partner swapping. Let's see if you'll be down to pay for this meal. Let's see if you'll be down to let me, I feel like
eat meat when you don't eat meat.
Exactly. Yeah. Eat meat when I know that you're a vegetarian. Will you eat it even though I know that you're a vegetarian? Every time what he was trying to do, he was just doing a little bit more manipulation, a little bit more just to see what they would relent to for the sake of being nice, for the sake of not being honest, for the sake of avoiding the awkwardness and the conflict. How much can I get away with for the sake of, because of your comfort zone of not wanting to face any kind of awkwardness, conflict, honesty, everything like that. So I really liked all of that because that methodology works for what he was doing in this movie. Because, if you sit there and go, well, why didn't he just kill him then? Or why didn't he just, no, because the fun of it was just seeing what he could get away with this family. How much can I manipulate them? The daughter comes, sleeps in our bed with us. Like all of that stuff felt like manipulations by them just to see how far the manipulation could possibly go, and when you look at just their actions earlier in the film, all of it is part of the lure. The kid, that's why the kid is alive. They cut his tongue, but he's there because he's part of the package. He's part of the look, like, oh, they have a kid. Surely they're not going to harm us. Surely it's okay. I mean, they have a kid too. Like, they're a family too. So surely it'd be okay to go and visit them. I see now that all of that is part of luring you in. All of that is part of the manipulation. So it just makes you go, man, that character would have just kept pushing and gotten whatever he could have out of this family until, the jig is up and okay, now I'm just going to steal money from you and kill you now and move on. So I did like that methodology of him. I did like what he was doing and why, and it explains a lot of his actions and what he was doing. Now, the part that did annoy me about the bunny, how the hell did it get on the roof that quick? When did he have time to do that?
Yeah,
and if you would have had to have climbed up there and put that there. No way that you just toss that and you just got that perfect toss because you do this all the time. And like, maybe, I don't know, maybe he does. Maybe this character just does this all the time. And so he knew he could just toss that up there and do that. But when did he have time to do that? Why couldn't that have just been in his hand? I mean, it would have just pretty much been the same thing. It could have just been in his hand and he could have The father could have been trying to grab it, and he could have been moving it away from the dad, not letting him grab it. And maybe like when the dad comes in, he like grabs him and forces him down, overpowers him, makes him feel like powerless, like kind of like, I don't have to give this back to you if I don't want to, but here it is. You can have it. It almost would have had the same effect rather than, oh, the ladder's going to fall, and then letting him get in it. If that's all we were going to do, why did it magically have to be up there? So
I think that just has to do with the fact of he wanted to keep them on edge. Like you said, he knew he was done. Like he knew it was at that point. He knew it was coming to an end. He just wanted to push it a little further. And it's all, hey, you got a flat tire. Let's go get tools. Let's go do this. Oh, look, the bunny. It's also up there. Guess we got to get that. Oh, look, you're driving away. Oh, you want my son to come open the gate? Don't worry. I can open the gate. You know what I mean? Like, he just wanted that extra little bit of, they think it's one last thing. And it just never was. It's that game. And then on top of that, though, he doesn't.
My only question is, where did he find time? I mean, I guess the wife could have put it up there.
It's because
he was fixing the car, right? He was helping fix the tire. I just wondered when did he have time to do that?
I think it was up there before that, though.
Yeah, probably before they even came back, it was, because they probably realized they left it and did it like before they even got back. You know what I mean?
No, that's a different scene. Because they leave and come back to get the bunny.
Yeah.
Right.
That's when they run into them in the kitchen and they end up staying longer. Because they're like, oh, remember that time that you tried to leave in the middle of the night and you didn't? Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that wasn't the same leaving. She gets the buddy back. And then some more shit happens. Like they see all the it's when they're in the bathroom looking at the picture. That's right. When they do the bunny thing. When they're all in the bathroom looking at the pictures.
Okay.
That's when they hide
because the daughter would have been concerned with that.
Yes.
And that would have given them time, because that was my whole thing is, why would the daughter have let that out of her sight, especially after losing it, after having to come back for it, all of that stuff. But yeah, if it happened then, that would have been the time that
they were all
did it.
They were in the bathroom. They were figuring out shit super fucked. And that's when, and I don't think he even used the ladder to get up there. That's the same section of roof that they were coming out of that window on, wasn't it? I don't remember. Like, I think that they kind of falsed where the ladder was at one point. But yeah, I think he just got up on the roof, not even with the ladder, just threw on the windows. You can go put the bunny wherever you want. You know what I mean?
Okay, because it looked out of range of the windows. It looked like he had to use the ladder to.
I mean, and you could
get up
right.
there. The angle that it was, like the windows were over here, but that thing was on top of like a pipe or something, right? Like it was like a pipe, and then it was all tall. I don't know. I just was like, how the fuck did he?
Yeah, I'd have to sit down and look at a blueprint of this fucking house to know, like, but. Yeah, it's one of those things that's when he did it. It wasn't like he hit it while they were freaking out in the bathroom. So.
Yeah. And maybe it's just that things were happening so fast. It just didn't, I guess it didn't correlate with me. Like, when was there time to do that? But I get that.
That is one of the flaws in this movie is that, unfortunately, too many of their escape plans got foiled by the fucking bunny. It wasn't that it happened once. Their escape got foiled 2 different times for that bunny. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot easier in your head when you're just like, look back on it to combine them. Like what Heather did when she's like, oh yeah, they left and came back. Like all of a sudden it's up there. Like, no, that like it's two different events. You just combine them in your head. Because I think technically they even happened in the same day.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, the animals must have got to it because yeah, there's the together bunny when it was lost, and then the ripped bunny on the pipe." And he was like, "Oh, the animals got to it." But you are right. The reason why I'm not that mad is because of what you said, though. It was him just pouring on the manipulations just to see what else I can get away with. Oh, let me do this little other thing. Oh, let me do this little other thing. And then at the end, it was the equivalent of making you scared, watch it, making you. But what was very telling and a big lesson of the movie was whenever our father said, Ben said, why are you doing this? And he was like, because you let us, man. You let us do this. And so I just really like that too. Like, because they did, it was you that trusted us. It was you that wouldn't say anything or do anything when you were suspicious of what was happening. It was you that weren't listening to your daughter. It was you, when you play back everything that led up to that moment, that is true. They did allow this to happen. Yes, it was manipulation, but maybe some of that is avoided if you just weren't doing what you think you needed to do because to be a proper house guest or not wanting to hurt feelings or whatever the case it was. And even when you got the inclination to leave and could have left, you still allowed, when you came back for the buddy, they still were able to manipulate you, into staying. So yeah, I really like how that went down. I like that conflict and how he was like, no, this is your fault. And so like whenever we get to that, and then all of the stuff, the rummaging through the house, I liked all of that. I liked the fighting. I like how the dad was freaking out and the wife had to coach him up for a second and be like, hey,
get it together.
Yeah, get it together. This is your family. I mean, but I liked it though. I liked how it wasn't just like, oh, we're this family of Rambos now. I like how, you had a person freaking out that they were in this situation. Like, oh God, they're trying to kill us. What do we do? We're way out here in the countryside. We can't use our phones. What do we do? And they got guns. What do we do? I could see somebody freaking out. We don't have shit and they have guns. What do we do? So I get it, man. I get that not every great decision is going to be made in those moments. I could understand the stress of that and how crazy that could be. So I like that you had characters that were trying to get out of a desperate situation, but nothing that they did was ever too choreographed or it felt like, oh, she did a Black Widow kick right there. I like how it all seemed like struggling and fighting to survive types of things. Like, I think the choreography, if you can call it that, was very believable in that way. I didn't see anything that made me go, okay, why did this become the MCU? Like, I like how it was very, the fighting that they were doing was very much within the realm of what this would probably look like. Just people, regular ass people trying to struggle and do shit,
Every man fighting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it would have been kind of fun, though, if James McAvoy's like, no, you're trapped now. And then they're doing all that stuff and they get them and they're all in the shed or whatever and they think all that shit's going to happen. And then the family just starts laughing. And they're like, why are you laughing? And they're like, because you think you got us. This was our game.
This was our game.
And then just John Wick's the whole family.
I was about to say, man, this is one of those, you need a John Wick family. They need to keep, there's another version of this where, yeah, they capture the wrong family. And it's like the kid is like freaking Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone, and the parents are like, you know, the dad's like a True Lies spy, and the mom is like yep, you need that movie too, because that'd be cool.
Like they're serial, like it's a serial killing family, but they only target other serial killers, a la like a Dexter. Like they're a family of Dexters. Like, because one of the things about sociopaths, and especially like predators and stuff like that, they're very good at just identifying victims, you know, like looking at how you carry yourself, all this other stuff. And so it's like this family just goes and looks for serial killers on vacations, and to befriend, like, just to like, and they're so good at it, they make themselves look weak. Like once they get a target, they become the weak family, and it's just all for show. And they do the whole thing just like to figure out the killer's game and all that shit, and then like to let them do it and all this other stuff, because they do it to see how much of a fucked up response they're going to have back. They're like, oh, you're just going to kidnap and kill me? Are you going to torture me? Are you going to manipulate me? And they're like keeping a running list. And then it's like, man, you got a negative 68. This is going to suck so bad for you.
That
it also
would actually...
they gave me elements of the Abigail movie too, where it's just like, you kidnapped the wrong kid. You just did. Like,
yep. Yep. You just did. And now you have completely messed up. Yep. You are all dead. So yeah, no, you're totally right about that. And back to the victim picking thing. You're right. Like a lot of times predators and people are good at picking out victims. And actually now when you said that, it triggered something like at the beginning of the movie when McAvoy was like, hey, is this bed taken or whatever? Or this, what were they laying on?
The chair,
it was
the
like
pool
one
chair.
of those beach beds.
I think he called it a
beach
lounger,
chair.
because it is like a lounge, like a beach, like a, you know, one of those beach chairs or whatever.
Pool lounging chair.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think he just called it a lounger or something like that.
Yeah. And he was like, are you guys, is this lounger taken? And clearly the daughter's doll and stuff was on it. And he just took it anyway. And they just let him take it anyway. And that was almost like a harbinger of what was to come. You know, he just grabbed that and just took it from him, even though they were using it. But we don't want to be impolite. We don't want to be, you know, instead of being like, yes, no, that's ours, let him take it. And that's kind of like right then and there, he had found his victims. You know, he had found
the impression that he made too, like right away, is, you know, this family is right across from them. They're having the time of their lives. And even the husband of the other family was like, I want a beer. Do you want a beer? Like he wanted to just kind of do what they were doing. Like it was just kind of this immediate effect that James McAvoy's character had with just that one brief interaction.
Mm-hmm. And even him going, yeah, you want to get a beer? And she's like, nah, it's a little early for that. And you could see him go, oh. Be like, damn.
Well, it was that.
But
it's when they're like walking by the window and like they're about to fuck, and they're just like, he's just like starts staring at him. Like,
yeah,
it's that type of shit. Like, you know, it was very easy. Like, it's one of those things to where the manipulation that, you know, that they were playing, I don't even think that that's the way James McAvoy's character like always presents himself. I think he's presenting himself that way because that's the kind of guy that Homeboy wants to be. Like, oh, you want to have this kind of mentality. You want to have this kind of freedom. You just want to have the ability to just unapologetically be, you know, that man. And, you know, it's that whole thing that, you know, his wife had, you know, that texting affair and all of these things. And, you know, he had felt emasculated. He had felt, you know, cuckolded in his own relationship. And, you know, so part of it is like just sensing that he needs to reclaim it. So you be that the guy he wants to be, you know, and that way he'll want to be around you because he wants to learn the ways to reclaim, you know, and stuff like that. So like I said, I think it's one of those situations where that's probably not even who he is or even how he always presents himself. It's just that was the version he was able to suss out he needed to play.
Yeah, I like that.
That's a good point because, and now that I'm thinking about it too, like even back to when, like they're having dinners with the Dutch family, right? And then they're just being polite, not saying anything, just letting them, they're just kind of like, okay, let's just get through it, like kind of mentality. And you could see, you know, James McAvoy and his wife are just like, they're kind of observing, they're watching that, they're just like, they're not having a good time, but they're not saying anything, you know? And I think even from that, he could tell like, this is people that like, they're going to be a lot more easily manipulated or more easily like people we could, you know, bring in because we know based off of just that, these are the type of people they want to be around. They want to be around these fun, free, carefree people. And, you know, like, yeah, you're right. It's kind of like they're observing what they're doing and know how to play to what they want to be.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And again, with the not speaking up, not saying anything, but no, that's a good point. And like, and you could just tell anything that they found out, you could tell the game plan was, how can I use this against them? How can I use this to reel in that hook a little bit more? You know, and like Sterling is saying, I feel like a lot of it was him presenting himself how he felt he needed to, even when he would show some vulnerability, it was so he could manipulate that man who he knew was vulnerable and see if he could get him to, you know.
And I wonder if like even that part too, like when they're at dinner and, you know, McAvoy's pretending like he didn't know the wife was vegetarian. And then he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. But he's like apologizing to the husband. Like even stuff like that, you feel like he's just like, he's trying to get on the husband's good side because he's like, I know he needs to feel like he isn't emasculated. You know, he needs to feel like he is the important one. And that's why he's doing it, you know, and I feel like, because I was wondering why specifically he did that. But what you guys were both just saying now is like, oh, I bet that's why he did that, you know?
Yeah. So that's also just a testament to McAvoy's performance, because it wasn't just the flipping the switch or the fact that he could be charming and then be dark and psychotic the other minute and all that stuff. All that was great, but it was also these subtle manipulations too. He was so good about, as this character, you could tell that when you think back on it, you can tell this character was pinpointing with accuracy. How do I need to present myself to him, to Ben, to make him, to manipulate him? How do I need to present myself to the wife to make her, you know, all of it was about that. All of it was about that. And then the wife to wife, when they would have those conversations and she would talk about, I just love what McAvoy does. And we do this, and this is healthy. And you should think about doing this, and you should let your inhibitions down and all that stuff. You know, even, you know, just, you could just tell it was almost like before they went to bed each night, they would go, okay, what information did we collect that we can use tomorrow to just further reel them in from that hook? You know, we've got the fish on the hook, but what do we do to reel them in just a little bit more? So all of that is really great. All of that subtle stuff. And the last thing I'll say with the little boy, because I thought that was interesting too. And I think I got it, but I may have read too much into this, but I thought it was interesting too. that whole part where they're at dinner and McAvoy says the thing about the parents, and you can either decide to be like them and do what they do, or you can go away, go off, do your own thing and stuff like that. And you have to make a choice and all that kind of stuff. Well, at the end of the film, before the boy bashes his brains in, he says, when the little boy's about to do it, he goes, "That's my boy." And I get that, okay, that's not like his son, but in a way, was he saying, I won because you're choosing violence? Like,
I think he's saying, you're turning into me. It's that
you're turning into me. Yeah.
Like, I'm
You're
proud of
choosing
you.
violence.
Like,
you're choosing violence. You're
that,
choosing to kill me. You're choosing to kill me. I was going to die anyway, but you are choosing to kill me. You are becoming like me. This trauma is affecting you.
It's not even, to me, it's not even that you're choosing violence. It's you're choosing finality. It's not even necessarily violence. It's the fact that, yeah, I'm going to die, but like, you want to see it. You want it. You want to witness the end. You want to make sure it is the end. Like it also, the degree of like, also probably, it could also be, you're standing up to me. Like, on your own. It wasn't even like, like there's nothing left. You're not in danger anymore at this point, and you're still choosing more or less to stand up to what I've represented. It's not like he's not respecting that family for standing up for whenever, they were on the precipice of death, because that's fight or flight at that point. It's you're choosing to when you don't have to. Like, you're not in danger. You're still just choosing to stand up for yourself, or choosing to protect yourself, or do what you want in that moment. I think there are some layers to it in that regard of, it's probably like a combination of all the above type of thing. Like, you're turning into me, you're killing me, you're turning to violence, you're making sure it's I think it's a little bit of all of it. Like, it's just,
yeah. And I like what you said about the standing up thing, because that kid did finally stand up to him too in that way. So yeah, maybe it is more of a all of the above thing.
Yeah, because you're not standing up to me because I'm about to kill you. You're standing up to me just because I've pushed you. You know what I mean? Like, I think that character almost would respect that more. Oh, you're fighting back because I'm going to murder you. Okay. Oh, I pushed your boundaries and you stepped up. Okay. Those things where he's like, whenever he'd have those conversations, he's like, see, this is what I'm talking about. The honesty of it all. Like, you're being honest in this moment. You're finally opening up. It's that the kid's actually doing that. The kid's opening up and just saying, fuck you. I'm done with you. Die, you son of a bitch. That's why I think it's a little bit of all of the above, because it is kind of all of those little things combining into, I'm proud of you. Like, and I do think the sad and almost creepy thing about it is the way James McAvoy plays it is, I'm a dying sociopathic murderous asshole, but I'm playing proud dad at this moment.
Yeah.
I'm a proud papa.
Yep. I'm playing proud dad at this moment. And like, it's almost like, if you don't stand up for yourself, if you don't speak up for yourself, if you're not honest with how you feel, then you deserve what happens to you. You deserve to be manipulated. You deserve your money stolen. You deserve to be killed. You deserve to have me be able to manipulate you in this way. But if you stand up to me, if you show some, for lack of a better term, balls, if you show some honesty, if you stand up to me, I can respect that.
Well,
hell yeah, kid.
It goes back to like 10 minutes before that scene when it's why'd you do this to us? And it's like, because you let us. The kid's saying, I'm not going to let you do anything. Yeah, you might be dying, but I'm not letting you do anything. You know? So it's that also. Like, he respects the fact of you going, I'm not letting you do shit to me.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just thought that was tight. What a way to go out, you know, just satisfying on two levels, you know, on a psychological deep level and just a brick bashing level as well. That's all I got.
Would you let that kid live with you after watching him do that?
I guess so. I mean, because we lived, we're all.
See,
I
that's
mean,
where
the whole family is fucked up at this point. How are you going to be the same after that?
Yeah, but like, wouldn't you be slightly worried that if you were like, eat your broccoli, and the kid's like, no, and you're like, eat your broccoli, and he's like, no, and you're like, don't go to your room without dinner, then and he's like, you're gonna push me around and beat you to death with a brick.
or even just like the trauma or the PTSD of things and like going in his room to make sure he's okay. And then he just wakes up and he's like, no. And he hits you in the face with something. Like, that's what I would be afraid of too. That was something I did think about. I was like, are they just going to let this kid live with them, or what are they going to do? Like, I feel like let's, get him out of there, make sure he's safe, but maybe get him like the help he needs first before we can like accommodate him into our own home, because there's trauma for all of them. You're right. They're all going to have issues after that. But it's also a matter of like, that kid violently, brutally just killed someone. Like,
Yeah.
So you're just like, we have a little bit of reservation before we just bring him into our home. But yeah.
Yeah.
And
I guess to be, sorry, Sterling, I get to say this thing real quick. And I guess to be realistic about it, once they got back and told the police and the authorities what happened, there'd be this big investigation. They'd have to figure out who all these victims were, what happened, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess there is a scenario where they would find out who his original family was, and a decision would have to be made. Is he going to go back with his family? Are you guys going to adopt him, et cetera, et cetera? So this shit could get really complicated.
Well, and that ties in directly to what I was going to say, though. And I'm actually glad you went first, because it actually makes my point a little better. They target people that don't have family like that. So that family, that kid's German, so that kid's German living in England. So his German family was in England and got killed. I don't know if they were living in England. Did they travel to England? What did they do? I don't know. Didn't really say. But like, so the argument could be he might not have any other family, or maybe any other family he might have would be distant, but like, there is that whole thing of, well, that kid's still not even where he's from. He is a German kid. And I did like the fact that they were like, when he passed the girl a note, like, in his little kid mind, he didn't comprehend, oh, she might not be able to read German. Like,
Yeah.
he wrote her a note in German because that's all he could do, And I like that. And for anybody that didn't know, like, the two tells with that are the fact that, like I said, the note he wrote was in German. Also, that his dad's Rolex, the inscription on the back is also in German. Like, yeah, that's why he knew it was his dad's watch. He was like, trying to point at it and all this other stuff. Yeah, it's a German inscription on the back of the watch. So it's a little both. But yeah, like, maybe, I don't know, maybe he has a great aunt or something, though, or a cousin back in Munich or whatever. Maybe he can go live with them and they could just deal with him doing his night terror, no tongue screams at night to calm himself to go to bed.
Yeah, that was crazy too. That sounded ridiculous.
It's also like really creepy that they just had it down to a science when he would stop. something about that was just very disturbing, where they're just like, oh, we know how long he's going to do this for. We're going to wait it out. We know exactly when he's going to stop and not continue.
But also, like, that little girl was supposed to sleep in that room with him. And they know it, like, the kid's having terrors. And that little girl's just lying there. Like, okay.
Right.
Yeah, and I didn't see her with any earpods, any earbuds or anything. So, I mean, she could have been jamming T Swift while he was doing his shit over there, while he was dropping his own album. But I don't know. I never saw her with any earbuds.
Man, you got to have those AirPod Maxes for that, with that nice super deluxe noise cancellation and shit, like that extra volume, that spatial audio. That way, if she turns her head, it moves. The sound moves with her.
Yep.
But it's even those things felt like that's just total manipulation by the family, because they didn't tell this family, like, by the way, this kid will scream bloody murder, but we're still going to have your daughter in here with him in a non-bed, which is fine, whatever. But, like, you know, just, and then when the mom's kind of like, oh, I'm going to go check on my daughter, like, no, she's fine, because he's done now. Like, just even testing that. Like, can we get you to just listen to us instead of checking on your kid? Like, how available will she be to us to be able to, like, have access to this little girl? Like, even that kind of stuff, you feel like it's every single move that they made was very precise and very thought out.
Yeah. And to that point, that dirty sheet on the bed, it makes you go, was that dirty on purpose, just to see if they would even complain about it and say, hey, you need to wash these sheets? You know?
Oh, yeah, it was. That was totally are you going to care that I did, like, that you have dirty sheets? Like, are you going to say something to me? Like, yeah, that was the whole point of that, is just to see if they'd say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's, you know, like I said, James McAvoy's whole, are you going to stand up for yourself?
Yeah.
And even, like, not telling the family, oh, by the way, this is no kids, until they're leaving. And then them just, again, seeing if they're going to say anything about that, you know, and they didn't. Like, and the thing is, they kept pushing it and they kept doing it, because every single time they didn't say anything. And then they finally, like, the first time you feel like they actually said something was when they were at the lunch and James McAvoy's wife was trying to tell the daughter how to eat. Like, that was the first time that you see her actually, well, I guess before that, when she's like, hey, my daughter was in your bed, and that's crossing a line. That was their line crossing point. You know what I mean? But then it was still just like, she tried to scale it back little by little, and then still, like, tell the sob story of, like, oh, I had a daughter, which, again, we don't know if that was a true story or not, because we know nothing about these people for real. Like, telling the story about, like, oh yeah, I had a daughter, and it just whatever. But then still, like, she scaled it back, but she still tried to push the limits with, like, okay, you got to eat this way, you got to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was like a mastermind of, they've clearly been doing this long enough to where that just naturally comes to them to know what they need to do to get under their skin.
Yeah. Just, okay, so they didn't like the girl sleeping with us in the bed. So let me try this. Let me see if I can just order her daughter around. You know, let me see if I can just command her daughter in front of her and see if she'll say anything about that. You know, just let me see what I can do. But let's just see how far we can take it, man. And there's just,
and then to try to make them feel bad if they did, because they're like, oh, you think it's okay for someone to just eat with their mouth open? Like, really, like, trying to make them feel bad because she wouldn't let her too. Like, everything was manipulation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, you're even missing it too with that, with the whole idea of whether or not, with the whole, like, him beating the shit out of his son. for not dancing and stuff, like him beating and verbally and physically grabbing him and abusing him and stuff, was like, that was all a test too, just to see, are you going to let me beat my kid in front of you? Are you going to be cool with that?
Yeah. And even the whole, like, can we make your daughter do something she also doesn't want to do? Like, because the dad said nothing. And that was kind of the wife's point of like, you will stand up to me all day long, but you will say nothing to this guy. And he's, and he's just like, yeah, just have her still dance, when she clearly is like, no, I don't want to anymore. And he's just like, just do it one more time. Just do it. Like, again, trying to like push their border and their limits.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in this movie. The downfall of it is just, you've seen it.
Yeah.
Like, you've seen this type of movie before, like, and narratively speaking, it's just not that original. Yeah, there's some fun little things to talk about and fun little things, but it's just like, to me, this movie, what it is ultimately it's a roller coaster. Like a good roller coaster at a theme park. One you haven't been on yet, but you've been on roller coasters. Like Jastin said, you're not surprised by the end because, you're ending where you started. Like, I know I'm not saying the movie did, but I'm just saying, where you're ending. Like, the whole point of a roller coaster is ultimately a big circle, so your end destination. You might just not know the particular ins and outs of this roller coaster, but you've been on roller coasters. So, it's got a loop-de-loop here. Oh, it's got a corkscrew here. It's got this here. And so depending on how you arrange those things and what you do in between them and all this other stuff, yeah, that can add to the excitement and the fun of a roller coaster, Even a roller coaster with elements of things you've done before, yeah, it can give you those little butterfly things in your stomach. You know what I mean? You could still get those feelings. You could still get the excitement you get from a roller coaster, even if it has shit, that you've had from other roller coasters. Just kind of depends on how you arrange them. Like, how fast are you going with this? Do you have a drop here and then a twist here? Like, what are you doing to make those things just feel a little different and a little unique? I have been on roller coasters with loop-de-loops just throughout my entire life. Every single theme park I've been to since I was tall enough to ride Shockwave at Six Flags Over Texas, I have been on roller coasters with loop-de-loops. That doesn't mean I don't like a loop-de-loop. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to go on this roller coaster. It's got a loop-de-loop. I've done a loop-de-loop before. Why would I want to do it? No. I might not have done a single loop into a corkscrew into another loop, even though I've done those elements on other things. Might not have done them in that combination. That's what's fun. And that's kind of what this movie is. You know where it's going to end. There's nothing that's crazy violent in this movie that you haven't seen in another movie. We've all seen movies kind of like this with elements and all this other stuff, but this particular combination, the way they put them together, the way they varied some of the things up, it still makes it for a fun ride. And that's why you still have some interesting talking points. It's because it's still fun. You don't have to be 100% this, that, whatever. Like, you can still be just a nice, fun ride. That's worth it.
Agree.
Yep. Oh, and one last thing I had was I just wanted to, Heather, you were on point with the whole showing the cutting during the preview, because right when he brought her down there to show her the pictures, before the movie even told me what happened, I had put it all together. I was like, oh, they cut. Or right when one of the when McAvoy or the mom said, yeah, his tongue is, he can't talk because his tongue um is
oversized or
smaller, or
something.
He's
his tongue is
undersized. He had
undersized or
undersized
whatever.
tongue, like a small
Yeah,
boy.
undersized tongue. The moment that happened, I immediately thought about the scene of the previews where he was doing that, and there was just no other place where that fit. And I was like, okay, they cut his tongue out. So maybe this really isn't the son, isn't their son. That's got to be part of it, you know?
Oh, I was a little more fucked up. I thought he was the son and they still cut his tongue out.
Oh, okay.
Like they're just that kind of fucked up people. My unfortunate thing is the first time I saw this, like it's not the first trailer that has the tongue cutting thing. That's actually one of the later, like the second, I think, trailer that does that. And
Okay.
what spoiled it for me in the first trailer is they do have the scene where that's early in the movie where he's just standing there like, and it zooms in on his mouth as he's just, you can see he doesn't have a tongue.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw. And I'm like, oh, he doesn't have a tongue. You know, I'm like, oh, he's like, that's what it is. Cause he's like, you know, he's the warning character. He's the harbinger of doom. He's, you know, no, turn back lest you be murdered or what, you know, the crazy guy on the mountain, you know, it's that shit. That's his character.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I also did think that it was their own kid, but that they just still cut out his tongue.
because isn't that a little more fucked up?
Mm.
Yeah, that would have been.
And that's why,
definitely.
Like, I guess when I'm like, oh, we're getting crazy, you know, James McAvoy, and they're like, oh, look at him, he's a fucked up psychopath and all this other stuff. I'm like, man, he is a psychopath. He cut out his own son's tongue. I'm like, now I find out later he just cut out some stranger kid's tongue. I mean, don't get me wrong, messed up. Not as messed up as cutting your own child's tongue, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when you compound that with the fact that he's only being kept alive because they don't want him to speak, but it's for the aesthetics of how it's just for that whole aesthetic of a family. Like, look, we have a child, therefore we are safe. It just it'll just make another family you're trying to manipulate put their guard down because, oh, there's this child.
Yeah, because I think, my understanding is they're only kept alive long enough to get the next family and do the same thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just that whole thing of, oh, look, we have a child, therefore we're more safe. And on top of that, it's a child with a challenge.
I think
so. People are just going to be even more compelled. Like, oh, look at this poor kid. He can't speak, blah, blah, blah. You know, even so now you're even using that sympathy to manipulate.
I do think part of it, though, is I do think one of the honest things you get out of the bad family is that the wife wants a kid. Like whether or not she had a kid and they lost her, you know, like Heather said, who knows? But I think that she wants a kid. Yeah. And I think the compromise that her and James McAvoy has is, okay, we'll constantly have you a kid until we kill it for the next one. And I do think that that's part of the reason why she was pushing the limits with the daughter and all this other stuff, was to also see if the daughter would listen to her as a motherly figure.
Almost kind of some grooming. Yeah. Maybe grooming sort of for what was to come.
Yes.
You know, because she's the one that's going to be left alive.
Yeah. You get used to listening to what I say, because you're about to lose your tongue and that's all you got.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think there's some aspects of that. So I do think that part of it's genuine. Is that to like satiate his wife's need of a kid? Is okay, we'll just use that. We'll add it into what we do, but like you know, but we're going to be recycling kids.
Yeah, and I think like McAvoy's character's perspective was more just like the kid is just around to do whatever I need the kid to do. Because even when his wife died, and he was like, "Oh, well, now your daughter's the only one around to take care of me." So, it was just like that was the only thing he cared about.
Yep.
Well, and with that too, I think part of it is like the whole thing of, when she said I was the first victim, there's a chance that's true.
Yeah, it feels like it might be.
Yeah.
She very well could have been the first victim, but then, at this point when she's, like full on, I'm an abuser too, like you kind of lose that, that little bit of pity when they're just, like, I'll kill you, but don't kill me. I'm a victim. Just let me kill you. Like, I'm only going to feel so bad for the person trying to kill me.
Right.
All right, you guys got any more thoughts about this movie?
I'm good.
On that note, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Cinema Slayers podcast. Check us out on the internet at www.cinemaslayers.com. Cinema Slayers podcast on Facebook, cinema_slayers on Threads, Instagram, and Letterboxd. We're at Cinema Slayers Pod on TikTok and YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating and review. We'd really appreciate it. Really help us out. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your friends' family, tell your family's friends, and most of all, tell those dear sweet mothers, because dear sweet mothers love
James McAvoy.
I think more specifically, clothingless James McAvoy in just a pair of very tiny briefs.
That too, yes. Briefs only, James McAvoy.
I see what you did there, mothers. I agree. Shout out to Plug Bigo and Window Cho for our theme song and logos, respectively. Remember, here at the Cinema Slayers podcast, we are pro slut, pro Sydney, pro naked. You. Yes, you, Cinefans, you are Knuff. Justice for Chris, justice for Dodd, justice for all those dear, sweet, wonderful stunt people out there. Just be doing them stunts. Doing things you wouldn't even consider a stunt, but hey, the industry does. And they do it just for you and your entertainment purposes. And as I always end, the TikToks, the YouTube videos, and most importantly, this podcast, just remember, according to Jastin, Moon Knight, who is back in the comics, by the way, is a Best Picture winner.
Justice for Chris Redfield.
Somebody will listen to me.
Nobody knows anything but you.
Double justice for Chris, because you're trying to take real life Chris that died and was ignored by the movie Iron Claw and insert your bullshit moose of a human being, Chris Redfield, into that man's legacy.
Don't
No.
make me a monster.
Jastin,
Yes, I did it.
you shouldn't be proud of that. It's disgusting. No, people may not know, for like the last almost a year, it's been a very long time, Mark Spector's been dead in the comics. And dead and unresurrected in the comics. Because that's been his thing. He's died so many times. Like, there's one scene where he's like literally died, and within a second later, Khonshu's resurrected him. Like, but no, he's been dead. Because Khonshu's been in Asgardian prison, so he couldn't resurrect him. So yes, due to recent events, like Khonshu actually escaped and resurrected him. So yeah, he's actually just been dead for a very long time. But yeah, Mark Spector literally came back this month, in fact. So it's been very nice having good old Marky back. He came back, and first thing he had to do was go kill the guy that's impersonating Moon Knight. It's fantastic. Love that shit. He's like, oh, I'm back to life. Let me go kill the guy that's wearing my shit. Oh, come on. Everybody wonders why I hate that fucking show.
Did he nunchuck him?
He hadn't pulled out the chucks in a minute, man. You know, and I think that that's one reason why is the writers of Moon Knight realized how overpowered the chucks are in the hands of a Knight of the Moon. And they were like, we just can't have him have that in the comics because what's going to happen? Thanos is going to show up, get nunchucked, problem solved. Galactus shows up, gets nunchucked, problem solved. I mean, Jastin, you saw it firsthand. I killed a dragon with nunchucks, dude.
I know, and that's why I want McAvoy to cut my eyes out, because why were you able to chuck, nunchuck, Fing Fang Foam, or whatever it was we were fighting?
Oh, it was.
Man,
that was Fing Fang.
Yeah.
I rolled up
Fing
to
Fang himself.
a celestial being from, I think, another planet or an alternate dimension or whatever that just happens to look like a dragon. I nunchucked that fucker into oblivion.
Dragon.
I nunchucked that fucker with a character that half the people that watched us play that game didn't even know existed before I chucked my way into their hearts.
His life bar dissipated so fast. I mean, I was like, why are these chucks doing so much damage?
You remember that when that kid Barry in that movie's nunchuck or that movie Sidekicks did that chuck routine, and when he went to the dream world, he was in the all white. Just saying, sounds like they took some inspiration from that chucking moon.
Unbelievable.
You know how in a lot of movies, like especially superhero movies, when you have a hero that could just instantly solve the problem, they have to have a way to conveniently write them out of the fucking movie until the time it's okay for them to come save the day. You know, when they do that, that's why they had to write the chucks out of Moon Knight's hand. Because he'd just be solving all the problems. They'd be like, oh no, Dr. Doom collapsed the multiverse and is the God Emperor of everything. And then they'd be like, oh, Moon Knight's got his chucks. We don't got to worry. I'm just saying.
That would be the part of the cliffhanger. Oh, Dr. Doom's doing all this, and then the last part of the cliffhanger would be Moon Knight going, uh-oh, I've lost my chucks. That would be like the part of the cliffhanger. The second movie, he gets
it'd be the funniest
them.
thing. It'd be Moon Knight, oh no, my chucks are missing. And then the beginning of the next issue is him going, just kidding, Chuck. And every problem would just be solved in 2 panels. It'd be, I lost my chucks. Turn the page. Never mind. Chucks. The universe is safe again. I mean, you remember when Thor tried to kill Thanos with that axe and he didn't? I'm just saying, if Moon Knight was there with some chucks, there'd have been no snap.
Done deal.
Yeah, he would have rocked Thanos. I'm sorry, but
you remember when that Celestial was coming out of the ocean in the Eternals and they had to do all that bullshit to stop it? They could have just gotten a Moon Knight, dropped him down, couple of chucks. Celestial's dead.
Yep, that's how it works.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, I mean, believe me or not, you know, whatever, guys, like, all I know is I've seen it. I've seen this man chuck bosses into oblivion.
I mean, it just made me so mad because it's just, the move is just called nunchucks. It's not even like mystical nunchucks or the nunchucks of the demon firebrand or the nunchucks of the mystic Bond Kaiser or anything. It was just nunchucks.
And the funny thing is,
Like he just gets them off the fucking rack and just beats up dragons. I
and
mean,
he's
come on.
and he's in that game. He's a mid-tier character, but I had just gotten a few power-ups and just upgraded my chuckdom. And he was just literally this character that was just more powerful than all the other characters. There was no reason for my strength bar to be bigger than Thor's. It was.
I mean, how are you doing more damage to Magneto? Magneto.
Dude, you were Cap, and you'd walk up and just like punch somebody with your shield. That move could just cut people in half. And I'm like, okay, you go cut the regular people up. Let me just go take care of these bosses real quick with my sticks. He didn't even do a nunchuck maneuver. He literally holds them in his hands and goes.
Yeah, he wasn't even doing anything cool, spinning them around or anything like that. No Maxi from Soul Calibur moves or nothing. Just chucks. Like he just ordered them on eBay, and now I can just beat Fing Fang Boom. Anyway.
I wish that, like, how did they make Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 and not put him in there? I mean, he was the single most powerful person in 2. Is that why they had to balance the game?
Yeah, he got banned, man. He's too OP. He got banned.
All right. We should probably end this one.
Yes.
All right. I'm out.